Yes, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your tutor of entrepreneurship, Professor Henry Buisa of Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Today, I want to talk about culture, and specifically the Bukusu culture. And I'm asking, can Bukusu culture afford to be static? Or any culture for that matter? But let me focus on Bukusu culture. Now, this is part 1 of my 7 parts of this story. I'm no anthropologist, I'm no historian, no culture expert either. So to answer the question, can Bukusu culture afford to be static? I only rewound my own life history, asked questions, looked at some documents, observed some rituals and ceremonies, and analyzed discussions on Bungoma's Bukusu Caucus WhatsApp wall, and then applied my own logic to generate this story, which, as I said, is coming in series. So this is part 1 of the story, in which I define culture. Yes, at that source, someone drew a wheel of culture, and you can see the culture wheel. It has components. The wheel of culture, tools, objectives, art, food and drink, values, greater community, knowledge and stories, language, rituals, techniques, and all that. Those are the components of culture according to that source. Now, my own search for a definition of culture in Bukusu language became elusive. Someone on Bukusu Caucus wall has coined the word Bukusu to define culture. But this to me is more of defining the Bukusu way of life rather than defining the term culture. So I consulted some documents. At that source, we read, culture encompasses religion, food, what we wear, how we wear it, our language, marriage, music, what we believe is right or wrong, how we sit at the table, how we greet visitors, how we behave with loved ones, and a million other things. This is Christina De Rossi, an anthropologist at Barnet and Southgate College in London. She was asked by Life Science, and that's what she said. Culture is a way of life. This is now from everything that people have, think, and do, members of a society. That is Ferraro 2003. At that source again, and we're told culture is relative. So culture is material objects, the ideas and attitudes, behavior patterns. Look at that picture. In their way of life, Scottish men wear skirts. And look at that one. In their way of life, Maasai women build houses. But it is no for Bukusu women. So culture, a way of life. Now, in Maasai culture, women can design, construct, and roof houses. Bukusu culture prohibits women from climbing houses. One may be tempted to suggest, correctly or incorrectly, that these are telling on choice of courses like architecture, building, and construction for Bukusu females. But that is not the story today. Now, at this source, we are told, but culture is no longer fixed, if it ever was. It is essentially fluid and constantly in motion. Now, this makes it rather difficult to define any culture in only one way. And the source goes further to tell us, no matter what culture a people are a part of, one thing is for certain, it will change. So, I am tempted to say that as a way of life, culture is the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the houses we live in, the language we speak, the rituals we undertake, the beliefs and values we uphold, the taboos we undertake, etc. And like the human body, culture is whole. Look at that. That is a human body with everything, all the parts of the body, the eyes, the ears, the legs, so like a human body, culture is whole when it has all its parts with it. Otherwise, it becomes disabled. In other words, if the food, the clothes, the houses are all together in aggregate culture, but if any one of them is not present, then that culture is not whole. That culture is lame, disabled. That's my logic. Now, if I were asked to list the key pillars of culture, I would list the food as a pillar, houses and language as a pillar, clothes as a pillar, rituals as the fourth pillar. And that, to me, will now make culture, the house of culture. The main pillars, the food, houses, language, clothes, and rituals. Of course, there are others. Now, recently, something attracted my attention. The place was Kimilili, my hometown, Bungoma, my county. The time was February 2021, and the event was Kumuse of Jairongonela, my late uncle. Kumuse means, an event that takes place after death, 3 days after burying an elderly person. Here, another elder or an orator or an advisor will come and advise the remaining about cultural aspect. So here, in this picture, in this video, you will see Mzee Kakai, who was now conducting this ceremony, and he accused the Bukusu, who build modern storied houses with internal toilets, to be violating the Bukusu culture. He's talking in Kibukusu. So, walking and talking and advising. Huswala means walking. People sit, women sit, and with their legs in front of them, stretched. The family, the close family also. Men will sit aside. Now, let the Bukusu hear this. Now, here, the elder, the advisor, accuses the Bukusu who are building modern houses and putting or building toilets within the house. He thinks that that is violating our culture because building a toilet inside the house and people going to visit to use those toilets is like excreting in the house. And that is therefore the accusation that the Bukusu are violating our culture. Now, this accusation triggered in me the urge to casually walk down some memory lane of the Bukusu way of life in terms of some of the cultural practices. And as I said, this will come in parts. But yes, an interlude. We can do some interlude. Look, very recently, this calf was born with only 2 legs. Wonders of the world. This 2-legged calf was born in July 2021, this month that I'm doing this video, in an Navajo area of Luhya land in Western Kenya, in East Africa. Traditionally, culturally, this could be a bad omen, so to speak. Now, in part 2, I look at a brief history of the Bukusu. I'm building up this story so that at the end, I answer the question, should or can Bukusu culture remain static? So, watch my part 2 and let's look at the history, brief history of the Bukusu.